So do you find it hard to like qualify the data that people drop on videos like this? Or, it's like, where do people get their information when you're seeing it on the news or you're seeing it on different websites? It's getting, in my opinion, it's getting so much harder to validate where some of this data is coming from. One of the sources that I do like, however, and that I do trust, and this is not a plug, I'm not getting paid for them, is the BiggerPockets stuff. They have a podcast. I listen to it from my watch at the gym every morning, and I also I like some of the stuff they put out there. In addition to the information and the articles that they put out regarding the real estate market. I like knowing what's going on in the real estate market nationwide because it helps me understand, like, what are we experiencing here? Are we dealing with pressures alone, or is this something bigger? Right. This week, some information that came to me via email was it talked about Florida and the Florida market right now, and how the Florida market is seeing declines in home prices, and in some areas, double-digit declines, which isn't necessarily indicative of what we are going to be seeing here in Arizona, right? I think that it takes that information. It says, okay, let's qualify this. What are the reasons for something like that happening? And hurricane season is coming up, right? I don't own anything in Florida, but I think hurricane season would make me feel a little less optimistic when it comes to buying a property near the coastline there, right? In addition, insurance. And insurance is something that, states like Florida, states like California, right? When you own real estate in those areas, it definitely changes the delta and messes up the equation as to what we thought real estate investments were supposed to look like. We're starting to see that now here in Arizona. Not so much as either one of those areas by a long shot, but we are getting a lot of pushback. And in some cases, like even in this last month, I had two particular owners who ran into some sort of insurance type, not issue, but basically cancellation, right? And those are things that we need to be thinking about here too, because dealing with insurance issues, not knowing what you're actually going to be paying for something, messes up the whole equation, or it has the potential to when it comes to whether or not a property makes sense to hold as a long-term rental, or looks like a great investment going in, right? So definitely things that we can't necessarily um, you know, insurance is something that it's hard to know what an insurance carrier is going to do until it hits your wallet, or like in the case of a couple of situations that I run into myself personally, where you just get an increase and you're like, what the heck? Where did that come from? Which you hope is not going to be the case for you. But hey, I am going to bring you some data on this video. Take a look. This is the data from the Cromford Report that is as of this June. It'll give you the month data, and let's see what you think. So here's the Cromford Index for the month, looking at it as of June 26th and how it compared to the previous month. And what we're seeing is across the board, except for Paradise Valley, all the rest of the major municipalities here in the valley have taken a downturn. Some from a Cromford Index down, look, 6% for Fountain Hills, which you kind of expect. Summertime in Fountain Hills, it's not going to be as busy as a lot of the snowbirds are moving to Fountain Hills and areas like that. But Chandler is surprising, 5% down there. Again, the Cromford Index is not a price. This is not a change in pricing. This is a change in the Cromford Index, which basically evaluates how the supply and the demand coexist, right? At 100, it is a balanced market. Above 100 is leaning more towards a seller's market, or is a seller's market. Under 100 is leaning more towards buyer favor or a buyer's market. And in some, for example, like Buckeye, Maricopa, those are buyers markets right now, right? Whereas the rest of these are all leaning more towards a buyer's favor, somewhat balanced in the 90s and even in the 80s. You can see some that are relatively balanced, leaning more towards the buyer favor, but then you get more into buyers markets, which are Surprise, Queen Creek, Maricopa, Buckeye. Right now, there aren't any strong sellers markets here in the Valley. There might be some submarkets that this doesn't indicate. It might be particular pricing in a certain area that is represented here that we just can't see. But at the end of the day, like right now, the market is leaning more towards a buyer's market from last month even. Yeah, hope that helps.